So, welcome to the Picky Girl Travels podcast, the show for Black women who want more out of life and to live it as they see fit. The message here is all about embracing convention. No, that is wrong. That is wrong. Okay. The message here is all about defying convention, embracing adventure, and regretting nothing. I am your host, Adelia of PickyGirlTravelsTheWorld.com. So, as you can see, it is another extra special episode of Tea Time with Ivana. That's Ivana.
Hello, I'm Ivana.
And in case you are new here, and you're unfamiliar with these particular episodes, what is Tea Time about?
Tea Time is two friends examining what it means to live life on your own terms and what it takes to return to who you are, for real. Also, if you're new here, I'm drinking tea. I have a great rooibos tea. Adelia does not do tea, so she has a very wonderful and authentic Belgian
hot chocolate.
Yes.
Even came with whipped cream. It's delicious.
Today's episode is sponsored by Reclaim the Retreat, and it is an international retreat that Adelia and I co-host for women and femmes looking to reclaim their happiness, identity, and their peace. And if you would love to join us in El Salvador, go to reclaimtheretreat.com. We also have some other locations in 2024, but if you're trying to get a head start on it and jump on it, El Salvador, February 2024.
Absolutely.
Adelia, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about a topic that intrigues me a lot. And I know y'all listening or watching this is like, okay, she's just saying that. But I honestly will often bring up fear, that's the topic, and how people react to it, how it causes, it's something that really interests me.
Yeah, I think that's the question at hand today. Fear, is it a tool or a crutch? Because quite often, particularly as coaches, but also as women, Black women in the world, questions about like safety and comfort stemming from fear, I think both you and I get those quite a bit,
especially in my line of work.
Yes. And as people who, I think most people, we are adventurers, I would argue, and people see us as brave. I think that is really what it is the number of people who come to me and they say, oh, but you're so brave, or I could never do that. And using fear, I think in that sense, as a crutch, but it isn't always.
Yeah, no, because honestly, this is a conversation we've had a couple of times about, because I often get so many questions that to me seem to be coming from a place of fear about, is it safe there? Will they like someone like me? Just to name a few. And it strikes me that so many people, that's where their starting point is before they embark on any kind of new adventure or anything like that. It's coming from a place of fear. So there's that, but then there's also what you just said about us being adventurers, and I almost corrected you because I was like, no, we're not, but yeah, we are. And the assumption that if you try scary things or you do scary things, that there is no fear there.
Yeah. Tell me, I guess, when has fear played a significant role in your decision making? And that could be maybe in a positive or a more negative way.
The first thing that comes to mind is part of the reason I stayed married for 20 torturous years was fear. Yeah. There were several kinds of fears, but that I can think of things that I was afraid of what would happen or what I would have to deal with that kept me there. It was easier in my head to just stay than try and leave. And eventually, of course, I did leave, but That's the first thing that comes up. I was trying to think of a more positive
We can get to
example.
that. We can get to
Okay.
that. But I think, it right, the point being that fear can very much dictate the lens through which you are looking at things, and like what you consider your options to be, and limits us, I think, a lot of times. And I don't know how this resonates for you, but I think when we're living with fear or letting fear be the driver, right, we are very much not living authentically to ourselves. We are generally
Absolutely.
living according to someone else's or some hypothetical rules that we think
Absolutely.
exist.
And I think that's what the fear kept me in place for so long. But eventually I chose to be more authentic in how I lived my life. And that forced me to just disregard the fear and do what I needed to do that was right for me.
I think I would relate to that. I am someone who, I always say for myself and for my clients, is like, we're people who are kind of checking the boxes of success, right? We do the thing that is expected of us. There's a step, right? That there's a step-by-step process for how you get to be successful, for how you get to happiness. And I think fear keeps us on that path, right? Similar to keeping in your marriage, I feel like fear is very much why I didn't explore like taking a gap year. Or I was like, I gotta go to college and I gotta get a job and it has to look like this, right? Education needs to look like this, right? Thinking back on it, why wasn't I exploring college outside of the United States? Or, I love to travel, right? I was out here planning, I need to study abroad in Spain. Girl, I could have gone to school in Spain.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like thinking about it now. But, in my mind, I had the blinders. I had a very specific way of how things needed to work and what was expected of me, and living according to that.
Absolutely. You just said it. I would have loved to have taken a gap year, but I was like, the scholarship is not going to wait. So I need to go to school while these people
Right.
are going to pay for it.
Right, like those were your options, right?
Yes.
Like you either go to school now or you don't go to school at all. That is what it seemed like. And I think that is a very common manifestation of fear, of seeing your options and the opportunities in front of you as very black and white. It is binary. It is this or it is
that.
nothing at all.
Yep.
As opposed to, if this is what I want, how could I make that happen?
That's the difference.
We talk about, is it a crutch? Is it a tool? I believe it is both. But talking about when can fear be useful?
I think in how I use fear now, I think it is a useful tool because I am no longer the person who doesn't do something because I am scared of what will happen or what could happen. Now it is the fear of regret.
Right.
Because if I don't do something, I am now thinking about, will I regret this later? Even though I feel very uncomfortable, this is out of my depth, I don't know how this is going to play out. I think about like when I retired in 2020. I knew that I did not want to touch the money I had in savings for retirement. But I also knew I didn't want to work that job anymore.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm leaving. But I did not have a plan. And that was very, very scary. But the thing that was driving me was, if you don't do this, if you stay with what you always do and what you always know, what opportunities, what cool things are you going to miss out on?
Right.
So I did it. And
Yeah.
here we are.
I would also argue fear comes from a good place, right? It is a safety mechanism. We are afraid of things, biologically,
'Cause they
right?
could kill us.
That's right. We need to stay alive, right? So you need to have a certain level of skepticism. We have also experienced things, right? We are Black women from the United States. You've experienced things that tell you I need to have certain precautions, right? When I enter the world, when I'm having certain interactions, or be aware of things, which is fair. I think the issue is that we tend to then lean into that and use it as this blanket statement of how to move through the world or how to interact with people or what to expect from other people or in every situation, which is not helpful.
I think it's that I don't mean that I don't want anybody to get it misconstrued that I don't want people to be afraid. Because like you said, fear is actually a very healthy thing. It is a life preserver. You know, like it keeps you around, but always starting there. One of my personal pet peeves is, you know, with the YouTube channel and the podcast, when people ask questions, that's where they start. Not, I'm considering this country because it's got these things. It's, I'm starting with, is it safe?
Right. And one, that is a terrible question because safety is
an illusion.
It's an illusion, but it's also subjective. Right. What I consider to be a safe situation and how you may feel in that situation are two different things. You know, what we consider when we're thinking about is something safe or not, right, are going to be very different things based on our own experiences, right? That is how we move through the world, is through our own lens that has been created through the experiences, our cultural backgrounds, right? Like that is how we make decisions, how we move through the world. For me, it's more about questioning the validity of our fear.
I like that.
Right? Because we're also afraid of things, right? If you, I don't know, as a kid had some really embarrassing thing happen to you on stage, right? Even today, you may have some fears around public speaking, right? And that comes from a place of, oh, your brain is trying to protect you of, that was really embarrassing and we didn't like how that felt. Let's not get on a stage ever again.
Yeah.
Right? When in reality, that is a valid fear response, and yet that is not something that you need to be protected from right now. Right? Like that, it's not like it is trying to serve a purpose, but that purpose is no longer valid for you in this day and age, right?
Yeah.
And I think that also holds for moving through the world, right? Of yes, you need to use your experiences to make decisions like we all do, but assuming that everything is a one-for-one, that is not how anything works. Yeah, like it's never a one-for-one of I had this interaction with a person and therefore that is every interaction going forward. And also, things just be scary. Right? Like I said, we are adventurers ourselves, but in no way would I say that we are fearless people.
Oh, and I think let's make a very clear distinction there between being brave, being bold, being adventuresome, and being fearless are not synonyms. The fear is always there. There hasn't become a point where I have quote unquote overcome the fear. It is, I can live with the fear. I can examine the fear. I can, debate whether or not the fear is valid. But it's never that the fear goes away.
No, I think you learn to live with it and like let it be there. I think that is also the thing is we want to wait until we're not scared to do something. And I just don't think that is a reality.
Well, because you'd be waiting forever.
Exactly, right? It's like the idea of being ready. There is no ready. There is no right time. You just, you jump or you don't, right? And I think it is the same thing with fear of, it's less about how I feel, right, in terms of that fear, but also knowing if I do nothing, if things stay exactly as they are right now, I know what that outcome is, and I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
So I need to figure out that something has to give. And it's just, it's not an end all be all of like, I've done a thing and it was scary and maybe it actually sucked, right? Maybe it wasn't what I needed. Maybe I learned that it was not good.
That's like more data. That's more information you can use to make choices in the future.
Yes.
And that's isn't that really all we're doing here?
I think that's what we should be doing, right? Is making choices, making decisions based on who we are right now, things that feel true to us, right? And allowing ourselves to learn from it. You didn't mean to say this when we were opening, but you were saying embracing convention is what you first said, which is, we're not here to do that.
No.
But how would you say fear plays in how we do or we don't embrace convention?
Oh, I think fear is right there for a front row seat. I would even go a little further and say that's probably one of the major reasons why people feel compelled. Like you were talking about checking off the boxes. Mm-hmm. The path that we've been conditioned to believe we should follow. It's a lot easier to follow a path when you've seen multiple people over a period of time follow that path.
Yeah. It seems safe.
That's what I was going to say. We believe that it is safe. That doesn't really mean that it is the safe thing to do, but we believe it is safe because we've seen other people do it. Mm-hmm. And it is that the fear of deviating away from that.
Yes.
So how many folks strive for convention? Yeah. I used to.
I think most of us do to a certain extent. I think particularly as women, I took a linguistics class in college, men and women, men versus women, something like that. And one of the things that they were talking about is like women and girls, we want to be the same, right? And so if you and I are having a conversation and you're like, oh, this thing happened to me, even if it did not actually happen to me, I am going to be like, me too, right? As a kid. As an adult, obviously, you find some similarity to try and mix, but, they gave the example of two little girls talking, right? And one says, my nanny just got braces. And the other little girl says, oh, yeah, my nanny too. That little girl may not even have a nanny, okay? But it was, you need to understand that I see you, and we need to fit in together.
I was like, is that why when a group of women go somewhere, you need to know what the other people are wearing? Oh no, maybe that's some other kind of survival
I think there's maybe a
thing.
certain part of it, but I also think it's like, like you want to look like you go together.
Yeah.
I don't know. We all see the celebrity couples. One that's talked about right now is Justin Bieber and his wife Hailey, of her showing up in like elaborate gowns. And that man looks like he just rolled off the couch. Like, what? I think that is why women want to, like, can we not embarrass each other? Can we not?
Can we look like we're going to the same event?
Pretty much.
But yeah, there is a perceived safety in sticking with convention. Mm-hmm. And sticking with what is known. Even though there's no guarantee that if you follow the path that you've seen other people follow, that it won't be disastrous for you.
The results are not going to be the same. You're a different person in different situations, circumstances.
But we believe that if we've seen enough people do it, it'll be okay. Think about my YouTube channel. I've lost count of the number of women who have said, well, I saw you do it. Mm-hmm. I saw you were out there living in such and such country or traveling to such and such place. And so then that opened the door for the possibility that I could do it too. Mm-hmm. And that's not to downplay, having representation, because it's a fact of the matter that often we can't conceive of what could be possible for us until we've seen somebody else doing it. The difference here is, are you doing it? Is it somebody's opening a new pathway for you, or is it, I can do that because they're doing it and that makes it safe?
I think it's a lot of the latter. I had a client who wanted to move abroad, had studied abroad in college and wanted to go back to Ghana and like spend that time. And when we first started working together, she kept talking about doing a Fulbright, right? And she did, like, for years, I have started the application and I have never finished it. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, let's talk about that. right? That is information. That is telling us something.
There's a reason you haven't.
So let's
finished
dig into that. And what came out of some of those conversations was basically, it wasn't that she wanted to do a Fulbright and that's how she wanted to see the world, or there was a topic in which she really wanted to study. It was, this is easy to explain to people. People understand you going back to school. People would understand, that is being a Fulbright scholar is something to...
That's very different than I quit my job to bum around Europe for a year.
Yeah.
That's a very different vibe.
Yes, and that's what I think we often get wrapped up in, is we want other people to understand our choices. We want them to accept them. When in reality, that ain't none of your business, right? How they feel about it. It's how you feel about it. Can you stand behind it? Can you feel good about yourself? Taking that chance, that opportunity, whatever it is, it may not even be as big as leaving the country. We are often compromising what it is that we truly want for ourselves for the benefit and comfort of other people.
Say that again. Say that again.
We are so often, I don't even know what I said. We are so often compromising ourselves and what we want for someone else's comfort. When in reality, that comfort doesn't, that discomfort does not go away. We just internalize it.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want them to feel bad, so we're just gonna feel bad. And that is no way to live.
No, I don't want to feel bad.
No. It also breeds resentment in your relationships.
Yeah.
If you feel like you are making concessions for someone and they are not recognizing them.
Yes.
When they didn't ask you to do that.
Been there. Done that. Got the t-shirt.
And so I think it goes back to really asking us, what is it that we are afraid of, and how bad is it really? Right? When you are thinking about making a choice and it's, well, I don't know, I may, if I quit my job, I may have no money, right? Maybe.
Which is a valid concern.
It is very valid.
It is a valid concern.
But also, you have a job now, you can get a job again. Like, there's also a way to flip that, right? How can you reframe this of, sure, it is a possibility that I will lose all of my money, right? But I have a job now. I probably had a job before this.
I feel like a lot of people have that thought pattern because, they're contemplating moving abroad, taking a sabbatical, doing whatever. And it's like, if I quit my job, how am I going to eat? And that's a valid concern, but they don't seem to make the next connection like, I have gotten a job before in the past. Mm-hmm. I should be able to get another one when I want to. I get a little bit of that when I talk about FIRE, because I guess technically I have achieved, we're gonna call it Coast Fire, Barista Fire, whatever. But people hear FIRE and financial independence, retire early, and they think about, well, you retire in your 40s. What happens if you run out of money?
You go make some more money.
You go make more money. And it's like, so many times people stop right there. And they don't look beyond that or even acknowledge, I've done things in the past that I could likely do again in the future.
Yes.
That's weird. That's really weird.
Yeah. I think that's just it, is we let fear kind of put the blinders on for us, right? Of here are my options. It's this or it's that, as opposed to, oh, I could get another job. I could, I don't know, start a business. It could be a multitude of things, right, that could help us out. I, talk a lot about having moved home for a period of time and back in with my mother, and a lot of it, of why I didn't do that sooner, was fear, right? What does it say about me if I don't have this job? Mm-hmm. Right? What does it say about me if I am living with my mother? And the thing is, that's not my problem. And I think that's it, is we are taking in everyone else's shit as our shit.
Is there a way to examine the fear and make sure it's something that you are truly afraid of or afraid for, and not just carrying somebody else's baggage.
Yeah. One, I love a question. So how true is that? Like, okay, I'm afraid of this thing happening. How likely is it really for that thing to happen? Right? I think if we even just stop to consider for half a second, we could bring ourselves to reality of like, oh, okay, that's probably not right. If I quit my job today, I am not going to be immediately homeless tomorrow. Right? Like that.
It's generally not how it works.
Not the situation, right, that we are in. But I think also asking the question of, why do I feel that way? Or why do I believe that, right? Because as we're talking about, oh, I can't do this thing because I can't explain it, or because so-and-so is going to have a feeling about it, right? Whether that be parents, partners, friends, right? Okay. And if they do, then what? Why am I uncomfortable with them having those feelings?
We have been taught, I don't think men are taught this, but as women, we've been taught not to make other people uncomfortable.
Yes.
And so that's one of the ways it shows up is, I don't want them to have to wrestle with this. So here, I will just hobble myself. Which is stupid, but the reality is that's what we've been taught to do.
Yes. In the process of learning yourself and putting yourself out there, you generally, the choice comes down to disappointing yourself or disappointing someone else. And so often we choose to disappoint ourselves. And in the short term, it might feel easier, right? It is maybe easier than having that difficult conversation, whatever it may be. But long term, you're the one that is suffering. Like, understand that. And also understand that you are making that choice. I think that is often the problem, is our fear keeps us locked in a victim mindset of, these are the things that are happening to me, right? These are the things I have had to do. When quite often it was, no, there were other options, or there was another thing to do, but you did not feel that you could make that choice, so you made this other choice.
Yeah.
Also, choosing to do nothing, to not change anything, that's a choice.
That is a choice.
Be clear, right? Even when you think that someone else is choosing, you made a choice, and just own that. And I think if you are open to owning your role in your dissatisfaction or your discomfort or your fear, even, you will start to look at things a lot differently.
Yeah.
And think about what your options really are. And I think that is where having a coach in particular in some form can be very helpful, because you have someone who their whole job is to help you create different perspectives and to reframe the things that you think are taking as Bible, right? This is that you are taking as law, right? Of how things have to work or what your options are. Getting someone who's like, is that true? Is that, I don't know. And so what, right? If you are afraid, then what?
Yeah, as someone who has been guilty of hyper independence and trying to solve my problems, everybody else's problem. That is, I don't want to say the biggest benefit of a coach, but being able to have someone else help you reframe that to be, because it's when you are hyper.
Can you define hyper independence real quick, just in case there are people who have not heard that term before?
I don't know. I guess I think of it as independence to the extreme. Like, I can't ask for help. I don't want to burden anybody with helping me. This problem is my responsibility to solve it. I have to find all the answers. I have to do it all by myself.
I have asked for help before.
Yes.
And did not receive it.
Therefore, I will never ask for help ever again, and I will have to do this all by myself.
Yes.
And I'm thinking of a recent coaching client where I listened to what they had to say, and I said, well, this is what I hear.
Yes.
And I just said it back to them, and they were like, I never put that together. And so, like, that's, I think, one of the powerful things about working with a coach, especially when you are somebody who has just been determined to solve all of your problems by yourself. Because I don't know that you can. I know we like to think we can.
No.
But
Well, and yeah, the idea of independence, right? Like, sure, we don't want to be codependent, right? We want to be able to make decisions and move through the world on our own accord, but that also does not mean by yourself, right? I would argue I'm a very independent person. I'm very about community, though, right? And having people around me who support me, right? Who are willing to call me on my shit, right? And who I can be vulnerable with. And I'm not saying that is always easy,
no.
right? It is not a thing, but I also understand that without each other, this life is kind of not worth it. Like
that goes back to, maybe it was the first tea time we did where we talked about everybody should have a village. And we often think about that only in terms of sharing labor, for caring for children. But when you think about making it through life in this world, doing it alone makes it so much harder. And really, everybody needs to have kind of like their squad. I used to refer to it as Team Adelia. Like, everybody needs to have a support team. And it's not just about like helping you raise your kids, but helping you like live in this world.
Yes.
There should be people that you can talk to, you can ask for assistance, you can offer assistance, like you said, somebody that's going to be like, girl, I know this is what you're doing, but you on some bullshit. Like,
let's talk about that.
Yeah. And
but we'll also support you in doing the bullshit.
But they will say, hey, let me tell you why I think this is some bullshit, but it's your choice. And I see this a lot in the YouTube live community and the chats there, where, you know, the people who watch my videos, the people who watch Stephanie Perry's videos, Rashida Dow's videos, the OGs who've been around for a minute, they will talk about the community. And the new ladies, there's always somebody who says, I've never gotten along with women, or, you know, I had these friends and they did me wrong. And to have that experience and then cut yourself off, I think is a grave mistake. And humans are, fear. It is fear. But humans are, what's the word? Not communal creatures. What are we like? We need other people.
Yeah.
And so I hate when I see that.
Social creatures, I think.
Yeah,
is maybe
that's the
term.
word. I hate when I see those comments because, one, I'm like, I'm sorry. I feel bad for whatever trauma those people caused you.
Yes.
And that it was so bad that it's shaping the way you move forward.
It is, and right, and I get that, right, because it's serving a purpose, right, of inner you, childhood you, whatever, is saying, oh, I was hurt.
Yes.
And so I need to build these walls. I need to protect myself. But also the question is then, what are you keeping yourself from, right? Sure, you are protecting yourself maybe from one sliver of things, but
at a larger cost.
Right, a larger cost to so much. And also those things it's intentional, right? Like building community has to be intentional. It's not just being in proximity to people. It's not just people that you have known for a long time. I would also argue that we come into things thinking support needs to look in one way. And so often it doesn't, right? I get people who are like, oh, well, none of my friends are doing what I'm doing, right? So therefore, they can't or they don't support me. And it's like, no, or, you know, or family members or whatever. And, you know, I have lived in multiple countries. My mother has not been to any of them. Okay? And yet I would never say that she does not support me, right? She is not living my life, and, you know, she's not living her life in the way that I live my life. right? But if I need someone to talk to, if I need a place to stay,
That's
you know,
support.
like she is supporting me, right? Those are things that I need too, right? Not just you're here with me doing the things.
Last week, the other week, some other week, I don't know, on the YouTube Live, I talked about being intentional, living an intentional life. Like that to me is part of the hack of a soft life. Mm-hmm. And again, you said it, creating community has to be intentional. You can't just be surrounding yourself with any old body mm-hmm. and expect them to have your back, to be able to support you.
Yes.
You would not build a team, you wouldn't open a business and just hire 12 randos you found on the street. Like, you need to know, like, are they going to be a good fit? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, you got to do that same kind of thing when you intentionally build your circle. And it may start with out of proximity. Mm-hmm. Like, we met because we live down the street. And then, you know, your interactions are sort of low-key like an interview. Everybody don't get to come into the friend circle. Some people are just acquaintances.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We say hey to each other. I ain't got to trust her with all my secrets.
Right. Yeah. Understanding levels. And also when I even beyond that part of intentionality, it's also being very clear as to what is the role that you would like this person to serve. I often recommend the book How We Show Up by Mia Birdsong. And that is something she talks about of so often we assume people are going to be there for us in a certain way just because in our minds, they are our best friend, right? Or we are good friends or whatever that means. But that is a huge difference than saying, hey, will you be my child's godmother? And here's what that means, right? Will you be an auntie to my kid? Or many of us live in places where our family is not, right? And so saying, hey, are you comfortable being my emergency contact? Right? But those are things we need to be asking for. Those are part of the relationships we should be building, but also being like, I'm asked for this.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
and you're here by yourself. Let me offer this to you. This is a fear
that I get a lot when, especially ladies who are, let's say, older than I am, when it's like, I think that's great that you're doing that and you're out there living this life, but, you know, like, I'm getting older and, you know, what happens when whatever. If the thought of there's nobody to find my body when I die, if that's like gonna keep me from, like,
dude, the number of people with that fear of like, I don't want to die alone, or like, I don't want people, and I'm like, well, then you're clearly not building intentional relationships, because even for people who are not physically here, I have those friends or those people I talk to that if I did not talk to them for 24 hours,
that then triggers certain things. Right. Like, there are people who have phone numbers, and if they haven't, now it might take a little while because people are like, girl, I didn't know what country you was in, so I didn't know something was up. But, you know, they look up one day and they're like, I haven't heard from Adelia. Let me reach out to one of the ladies I know in Mexico City. Mm-hmm. Or let's say I don't come back from some adventure. One of y'all would reach out to somebody else who's on the list. But the idea that, and again, this goes with veering away from convention. Because the reality, and this is something I've found a lot, is we often think convention is safe, or we think convention is a certain way, and it really isn't. So I get a lot of women, older women, who are like, I don't want to move abroad because I'm going to be alone and I'm going to die. In the United States, do you live in a house with all your people? No, right? So odds are, if you at home and you die alone, it's the same situation.
Yeah, you're making assumptions about how things will work out.
Yes, that we don't know. And letting the fear of, I can't predict how those things will turn out. And we're often holding on to beliefs about how things will work out that really aren't valid.
No. And you know, limiting ourselves and our options with those beliefs of, I am not brave enough, I am not strong enough, I am not smart enough, I am not capable enough. And not taking the time to ask, well, how true is that?
because, I mean, you've gotten this far.
And you did not have the answer.
In this life.
That is one thing I have learned as I've grown in my adulthood is none of us know what the fuck we're doing.
No.
Okay, like that is the key to being an adult, is knowing you don't know what you're doing. You are figuring it out, but understanding and being confident that you can figure it out because you have.
There are very few people, now they do exist. I think I just made a comment to you the other day about like, how do people like this survive in this world? They're the exception. Where it's like, you know, what is it they say? God takes care of fools and babies or something like that. They are the exception. The vast majority of us don't know what we're doing. We haven't figured it out. But it's not letting the fear stand in the way of believing and understanding that you can figure it out. Everything is figure-outable.
Yes, that part. So I guess to summarize, I think the biggest point is that do not let fear keep you from who you are meant to be, the person that you want to be.
And I would amend that.
Okay.
Only because I think people hear you say that.
Yes.
And they think, I should not have fear.
No, you like I said, it's not about not being afraid. It's not about not being fearful. It's about not letting fear be the driver. Yes. Right? I'm the driver in the car.
Using it as a tool.
It gets to be in the passenger seat. It exists. It is there. Right? And sometimes, you know, your person needs to be like, hey, watch out. They're slowing down up there. You know, you need that co-pilot, right? It is very helpful, but that is not going to keep me from where it is I'm trying to go. That, I think, is the thing. Do you have any, we've kind of touched on pieces of it, but in terms of kind of summarizing, how do you get back to that person? Right? How do you reconnect with yourself? How do you get fear out of your driver's seat?
I've said this many times, so this is not going to be anything new or profound, but I have gotten fear out of the driver's seat by deciding that there's a certain kind of life I want to have. And I don't have time to let fear stop that from happening. So I'll give you an example. I'm low-key kind of scared about this artist residency in January, even though this is a thing I want to do.
Yeah.
But when it comes to speaking Spanish, I go into very much fight or flight. And it's usually flight because the anxiety I get. And so I'm starting to think about what I have committed myself to, which is to be in an environment where virtually no one speaks English.
I would even go as far as to say Spanish probably isn't even their first language.
Yeah, Spanish is probably not their first language. And I am willingly walking into this because I kind of had this sort of romanticized idea of how this was all going to turn out. And then I started to think about and get afraid of like, what is this really going to look like?
Right.
However, the life I want to lead involves me speaking more Spanish. So my desire for that means fear has to sit to the side. It can't be the thing that determines how I move forward. I'm still going to be scared. Very. And I'm sure that's going to turn up in my speaking. But I want this thing. Just like I wanted this life.
Also, you know, you're gonna go. It's gonna be uncomfortable speaking
It's
Spanish,
gonna be really uncomfortable.
But you're not gonna die. It's not gonna be the end of the right.
But did you die though? That's really low key. You said it, but that has been since I blew up my life about 8-9 years ago. It's really been a question of, am I going to die? And short of a yes to that question, I have said, okay, we will go for it and it will turn out how it turns out. Yeah,
I think that is a really important point of pushing, like what is on the other side of that fear? If you were to push through it, what is on the other side of
and
that.
let that be the thing that you hold on to, is what's on the other side, because that's the thing that you want.
And I know we build up failure, quote unquote, as being this end all be all of a terrible thing, but we have failed at lots of things and it sucks.
It's just more data.
But we got through it. We got past it. You know, things have been embarrassing or did not turn out in the way that we wanted. And like, it was shitty in the moment, but we also gained the skills to work through that.
And you got a hell of a story to tell afterward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you mentioned the artist residency, but what, if anything, what is your intention going forward as it pertains to fear and authenticity?
Like going forward in my life?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it like we are on the other side of this whole thing.
No. We are not.
And we are not.
We are looking not.
But, you know, what is the thing that you take in order to continue to live what you feel is an authentic life?
It is, for me, again, is harnessing the fear and using it as a tool. I think it comes back to this, that what I use to keep the fear in check and continue to move forward is, I don't want to miss out on some incredible something because I let the fear take the wheel. And I will literally have a conversation with myself where I will ask myself, can you live with saying no to this thing, giving into the fear? Can you live with this in the future? And more often than not, the answer is no. I cannot live with not trying, not venturing something. So that means I have to deal with the fear, because I want to find out about what life is like on choosing to do the thing or go to the place or whatever.
Yeah.
That's really it. I come back down to, because I firmly believe in, when it's time for me to go, if there is a moment, you know, like that I don't want to think back and have a single regret. And so if that means saying yes when I am scared shitless, I am willing to do that, because I value not having regrets that much more.
Yes. I would agree with that. I commend you on that. For me, it's really not letting the idea of who I think I am keep me from the greatness of who I could be.
I like that, because I have been guilty of that, because I have this image of who I think I am. And I mean, I'm gonna be real. There's a lot of shit I've done that I didn't think Adelia could do. The Adelia who I knew her to be. Yeah, so no, get out your own way.
Yeah, you know,
I've
always said it's public speaking, I'm not a speaker. And like, this year has been my year of like, let's lean into this, right? I'm not just, you know, I show up here, I show up on other channels, I do love that, but it's like, oh, well, they asked me to do that. I would not have called myself a speaker in that way. And I'm like, no, this is a stage, right? I'm on a stage, I'm talking about things, I can lean into that, I can grow in this skill set, right? But only if I push past the idea of, I am not a speaker, that's not what I do.
Because of your idea of who Ivana is.
Exactly. And so I need to be open to the other
like
possibilities.
The other day when I referred to you as a writer.
Yes. I'm still working on that one. Still working on owning that one. But that is where we are. So I'd love to hear from you. One, what is fear maybe keeping you from? Right? What is coming up for you as we are having this conversation? And what is your intention moving forward?
All right, so
like and subscribe.
Yeah, you have your homework. Over the next few months, because this is the final episode of season 4 of the Picky Girl Travels podcast. So, in the meantime, when you finish your homework, you want to stay connected to both Ivana and myself. You can join Ivana's mailing list.
Yes, go to bit.ly/Ivana subscribe. all lowercase, and come join me over there. I be writing, even if I would not call myself a writer. But I'd love to have you over there. We can continue to exchange ideas. You can let us know what you would like to talk about. Tea Time Season 2.
Yeah. I don't know the link for my mailing list, but it's in the description of in the show notes. You know, I'm on Instagram at Picky Girl Travels. Ivana is on Instagram as well at Ivana Run the World.
Yes.
And if you are watching this on YouTube, it would be so awesome if you could give the video a thumbs up.
Like and subscribe.
Do the things. I often get comments from women who say, you know, the algorithm fed me this video, blah, blah, blah. It really had an impact. And part of the way to get the algorithm to do that is to let it know that you enjoyed this.
Yes.
If there is a woman in your life who you think needs to hear this conversation, share this episode with her. If you are listening to this wherever you listen to podcasts, if there is the possibility of rating the show, please do that. That also helps it become more discoverable for other people. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think we're good for a while.
We'll see you on the internet somewhere.
All right. Till next time.